Anyway, structure would be anything to raise you off of the ground to keep you from freezing or getting out of water that they call a structure. Or a tent, obviously, a lean-to. If you were to put a tarp over, say, some mailboxes or a shopping cart, you can call that a structure too. So now it happens in downtown and around the bridges sometimes and so forth. So given that, what do you think people should do if they can't stay off cold cement or use a lean-to protect themselves?
Are there shelters? Sorry, we just moved here a year
No,
ago, so
it's good to ask. There are some cities that have adequate shelters, and I want to give props to the people who volunteer at those shelters. Um, they're, and in Portland, there are very few. Like if you were married, if you had a boyfriend and girlfriend, you would not be able to stay there. If there's, I guess, a few for men. Um, there often you can't get in, and when you can get in, you got to go in and just stay there for the whole night, like sometimes rather early. And of course, there's conditions, and sometimes people just don't get in. So Right to Dream 2 went up as one of the solutions in Dignity Village. So, but I would say you probably don't want to go into a shelter. That the, some of the problems that are with shelters, you might be able to guess. That would be another question. What do you think would be the problem if you were to go into a shelter, say, especially your first time around?
I think belongings might get stolen.
Count on it.
Bugs might get assaulted.
Yep. All those things. Assault, I think they try real hard to not have that happen, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get thrown up on or sprayed with Lysol or good grief. Anyway, there's risk of course, head lice and body lice and all of those kinds of things. They do TB checks, but I think people are concerned still. So, Right to Dream 2 went up. It's a self-sufficiency community. They call it a rest area. Have you heard of Right to Dream? They're from a nonprofit called Right to Survive. It's on 4th and Burnside. Now, you're new to this area, and we're not in Portland proper. We're in Selwood, so might not know about it. But it was kind of controversial because it was right on Burnside at Chinatown, in a lot that he tried to put food carts originally, and they gave him a hard time, so he couldn't do that. And they have tents, and they have a gate, and they recycled doors, and they're painted doors around making this gate of this small, parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen it. They have a desk that you check in. They don't let anybody just walk on through, so they have some security there, and
Who's they?
themselves. They do have a couple volunteers, but I think they live there, and so despite the fact that they have homes, we have volunteers over there who live there.
Okay.
Which is pretty awesome. You can check in for 12 hours at a time to sleep. And there's also a membership, so you could stay there after like 3 nights of doing that, provided they're kind of in. I think they do a little screening. So some people are able to, I believe, leave their things, but they're not called a campground. They're called a rest area because, it's for rest, it's not for camping, and that's one of the weird things.
Can you pitch a structure?
They have tents. They have tents there.
Really?
So you just use the tent.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good.
Is
so
it good? I don't know what you told me.
It is.
It sounds good.
It is. I like them a lot because they take care of themselves. They feed themselves, and it lifts the burden of, other services because they have the security and the, they have 3 rules. They have no violence, no drinks, no drugs. And I've heard that there are more rules, but those are really where they stem. He said, if we have drinking and drugs, we're going to have violence. So basically, it's a precaution to keep people safe. So, the Right to Survive Right to Dream 2. How it's been there several months. I'm not sure exactly when it started. Actually, I think it started just before October. Might have been September. Anyway, so what would you expect the city to react? Of course, this is a leading question because if I'm asking you, there's probably an interesting answer.
Yeah. Well, first of all, how did they get access to that property?
It's private property, so they had permission from the owner.
Oh,
He's
okay.
renting
So
it.
that's a big deal. I would hope the city would be okay with that.
Yeah, the homelessness rose. The number of homeless families rose 30% in 2011
In Portland or across the nation?
in Portland.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the city is in a 10-year plan, but it's renewed after failure for the 10-year plan. I've heard they have a lot of 10-year plans for a lot of things, but this one is pretty urgent, and they're in year 7 of that renewed. So 7 years into the 10-year plan, 17 years later, it rose 30%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, city's reaction was to fine them, I believe, $641 for having doors that were too high for a recreational campground.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Would they have would the individuals who put those doors up have had access to those rules prior to putting them up?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Because if that's all the city had problems with, or is that just their way of poking them in the eye?